order the regular meeting of the River Falls Board of Education. This meeting has been properly notified, and we are going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any visitors or delegations who would like to address the board this evening? You may come. We have this microphone. Please tell us your name, and this would be your chance to speak.
My name is Jacqueline Walquist. I have 3 students in River Falls. I have a freshman. Thanks. Great. Is this better? Yes. Okay. I'm here on behalf of Section 5E, the appeal for the Committee on Poet X. I'm hoping that the board can see fit to remove it from curriculum entirely. This was an anchor book, and the committee met as for your policy, and 11 out of 12 people voted to make it a choice book. My problem with the choice book is, Diary of a Part-Time Indian was also a choice book that had the letter home recommending the parents read it and, or at least see that it was a PG-13 book is what it was said, like Billy Madison. So I allowed my child to read it, and it has the N-word. It has, I'm going to quote it, pussy, faggot, cocksucker, which according to filmratings.com is an R-rated book. And Poet X has 300 pages, over 30 curse words. 10 of them are the F word. Touch me again and I'll scratch my fingernails down your motherfucking pimples. Show me your D cups, man horse, and pics in a thong, put out or get out. Those are not curse words, but they are in violation of our language policy. River Falls is a character school of excellence, and this is not commensurate with our values. I've emailed my concerns. That's the committee. I'm pleased with the rigor with which the committee thought about this process. I think the inappropriateness makes this completely unacceptable to be in our schools. According to Scholastic, this book is an HL 800, making it 4th grade reading level for English 9. It's completely inappropriate. The English department has lost my trust. The specifics of the book, when I said, please, could we have a letter depicting, let's say, the poem about masturbation, which is graphic in detail to the protagonist, I was told by a teacher that that's taking words out of context, and we want to have the literature speaks for itself. And I don't think there is a parent that is comfortable with the school teaching masturbation and sexually explicit material in an English class. I think if you gave teachers specifics, parents specifics, they would deem this completely inappropriate. I was told in the committee meeting it's good to have the masturbation poem in there because it removes the stigma for masturbation to children and teaches them that this is a good and okay thing to do. Again, I don't think it's the school that needs to be teaching morality. I think we need to let the parents decide. I am concerned that this book has been embroiled in controversy since its publication in 2018. Huntersville, North Carolina was sued by parents and for anti-religious themes and also sexual themes. Marlborough School in Illinois banned the book for lewd content in February 2022. Lakeville, Minnesota threw it out in June of 2021 for sexually inappropriate themes and anti-Christian themes. This year, our children were made to read sexually explicit material without parental consent or notice. This is wrong. It's unlawful. I would like it removed from curriculum. Thank you.
So when it gets to that point on the agenda, I'll clarify what the board is going to be able to do tonight. So thank you for your comments. Anybody else who would like to address the board?
My name is Veronica Sparling, and I'm here to express my concern over some decisions that have been made concerning the curriculum used in 9th grade English. I haven't spoken in a long time. I'm also aware of the book, A Part-Time Indian being used, and I sent an email to Stacy, and she kind of explained how that decision was made, which I appreciate that. But I was asking for specific names of people who would make the decisions to put these kind of curriculums in our school. She sent it to Superintendent Benson. I never heard back from him because I'm just asking for a list of the people's names. She explained that some of them are maybe janitors at the school, some are people with an education background. I appreciate that explanation, but I think we need more transparency about who is exactly making these decisions. Because, I mean, I think when kids are sent to school, I would really hope that a classroom is a place to inspire young people to be their best, to aspire to lofty goals, and to use their time studying to become the best, most responsible member of society they can become. I do not see the absolutely true diary of a part-time Indian being part of that endeavor, nor does Poet X, as far as I can tell. And I would like to read a poem from Poet X just so people can understand why I would take the time to speak up. This is the poem. In bed at night, my fingers search a heat I have no name for, sliding into a center, finding a hidden core. Or stem, or maybe the root. I'm learning how to caress and breathe at the same time, how to be silent and feel something grow inside me. And when it all builds up, I sink into my mattress. I feel such a relief, such a release, such a relief. I feel such a shame. I sink into my mattress. I feel such a release. To make myself feel this way is a dirty thing, right? Then why does it feel so good? This has no place in curriculum, in school. When kids are introduced to something like this, in mixed company, suddenly it's like, oh, this is a topic we can talk about and explore together. We can have sex and we can masturbate. This is so out of line with anything that should be in curriculum. I am very disgusted, and I think we need transparency to know who makes these decisions, because I would like to speak with them.
Just for clarification, I've never suggested that janitors or custodians make curricular decisions in our district. Would anybody else like to address the board? Yes. I'm going to ask people to keep their comments to 1 minute.
Melody Boersma. I live in River Falls, and I am the parent of a senior this year, so she only has a couple more months left. And I've loved this district, but lately I'm so glad that she's leaving. I'm sorry. When I first read what was in the book Poet X, I was disturbed, I was disgusted, I was disappointed, both as a parent and as a teacher at a neighboring district. First of all, the parent side, Jacqueline talked about it, your other guest talked about it. We don't need to be teaching that stuff in school. I'm not for, getting rid of books or anything like that. If my daughter wanted to read this book, I would let her, but not in school. I would say, you know what? Let's sit down, let's read it together, because the things that are in there are something that an English teacher should not be teaching my kid, neither should a district. Those are things that we discuss as a family, and we talk about it with our family moral code. So for that reason, it should not be taught. As a teacher, I understand the interest level is at an 8th or 9th grade level, but the Lexile is at a 4th or 5th grade. I taught 4th grade, I taught 5th grade. I'm now at a middle school. My district teaches with rigor. having a ninth grader read fourth or fifth grade material is not rigor. We know our forward exam scores are going down steadily. That's not how we get them to measure up, okay? We have to give them things at a ninth grade level so that they can read it. If we don't do that, we will never be able to catch them up. And so I would also ask the board to reconsider and pull that book, maybe not out of the library, whatever. If other parents want to read that with their children and make it a true choice, go for it. But I don't think it should be included in the curriculum for those reasons. Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
Hi, my name is Sarah Bachland. I live within the River Falls School District. We pulled our kids from school and are now homeschooling for reasons such as this. I was going to ask if all the board members had read these books. It made me uncomfortable listening to it, and I hope it made you guys uncomfortable. If not, that is questionable. I would ask you to categorize this content that we read today. If I were to ask to categorize it, I would call it word pornography, which really should have no place in the school districts. I'd ask, what is the goal of this reading material? Why is this something that is important to be required or suggested even to read? My personal stance, in agreement with the other lady, is that sex education should be left to the parents. The public school system seems to have taken a sharp left in the last few years. Instead of focusing on reading, writing, and math, it seems to be focusing on social issues, sexual topics that should have no place in schools, in my opinion. The widest supported criticism of my objection to this book was, is this book being pushed on your kids? And if not, I'm sorry, can I read it? I'll reread that. Is this book being pushed on your kids on kids that are not your own? If not, then what does it matter? So I'll pose that back to you. Is this book being pushed on children that are not your own? I understand that a letter is supposed to be sent home to parents to opt out of this reading, but why is that even necessary? And what about those parents who don't have time to read all of your emails or letters? What about them? So I think that's all I have. Thank you.
You were wondering about people reading the book. Have you read Poet X?
I read the experts.
But you haven't read the book.
I have not, but that I'm not the school district putting out this book. You are. You're one of them. Yep.
Anybody else like to address the board?
Hi, I'm Pam Sauter. I am a community member. I had no intention of speaking tonight, but you just asked her a question, Stacy, so I'm going to tell you I read it. Did I read every single page? I probably read about 90% of the book. I read it 2 years ago. The reason why I read it is because it was on a list by Ibram X. Kendi as a book that he recommends. And those of you who know who he is, he's a social justice proponent. He wrote Stamped from the Beginning, a lot of books about history that a lot of people consider as critical race theory. And I did read the book, and I found it to be inappropriate. As a teacher, I've also taught reading. I've been a reading interventionist. I've been in school districts where we required our students to have ninth grade reading level in junior high, and this was a large district in the United States. If they didn't, they took reading classes. We did all kinds of things with all kinds of books. We did readers' workshop, writers' workshop. We used anthology. We taught them how to write. We taught them how to read. So to this teacher's concerns, if we're giving students books that are controversial, if they are low-level reading, I think that it's incumbent upon the school district and also upon the school board to consider this, because you can teach kids how to think critically with almost very little controversy in anything you give them to read. They can learn how to write beautifully. They can learn how to read. I would like to know, what is the school district doing actually to increase their reading levels if what we're hearing is math scores are going down, reading scores are going down? Are there extra classes that are outside of the classroom time or even in the classroom time to help boost those kids? If we want them to have academic rigor, if we want them to be the leaders of our city and our nation, we want them to be able to think, read, write, speak critically without, being watered down with their education, without being watered down by things that they have to then maybe feel. There's a lot of talk about their mental concerns. It's not just from COVID, it's from a lot of things. But one of the things is kids who are not exposed to this and now have to be exposed to it have to wrestle with it. People say they're going to hear it, they're going to be on their phones, they're going to see it on TV or, movies or the internet or whatever. Not every home and not every kid does that. Yes, many kids do, but a lot of kids don't. Now you're making them wrestle with something that is maybe not their family's intent, their family's moral background. If we're going to talk about equity, if we're going to talk about equality, then we need to be respectful of everybody, not just certain people. So thank you for listening.
Any other comments?
Hello. I wasn't going to say anything. My name is Michelle Lundberg-Bogner, and I have an 8th grade daughter. And I'm very open-minded to all of this stuff, but I did have a conversation with her about this book, and we read some of the excerpts, and she said, oh my gosh, I would be mortified. I would not go to that class. I absolutely wouldn't read this, not in school. So just her take on it of being like, I have to go to 9th grade and I have to read stuff like this in front of my peers, I am mortified. So just from an 8th grader perspective of reading like that.
Hi, Carmen Gillis. I'll be really brief. A lot has already been said. I have 2 children in this district, and I also have a son in 12th grade in Hudson. So I go between the 2 districts, and something that really bothered me was losing trust in the 9th grade English department with providing this book. And so that's huge for me, is the trust. And then the other piece that I'm really concerned about, and it's been echoed, so I won't belabor it, but is the academics just sliding down. And just, that just really concerns me, knowing this is a 4th grade book in a 9th grade class. And the last thing I'll just say is garbage in, garbage out. I mean, and that to me really sums it up. So thank you.
Any further questions or comments? All right, then we are going to move on with our agenda. And the first thing is a Wildcat Pride Award. And Mike, would you be willing to? Oh, Bob has them.
There you go. Yeah. This evening we have 2 presentations, and the first one is the gentleman sitting right to my right here. Todd, this is Todd's last school board meeting, and on behalf of the students, staff, parents, and community of the Board of Directors, extends this appreciation to you for your dedication, commitment, devotion to serving the school board for 2.5 years. Your passion for always making decisions in the best interest of students was a clear reflection of our values. The countless hours of preparation, homework, and overall level of commitment you provided to make this district the best it can be proves you to be a true ambassador of Wildcat Pride. Thank you.
But I have to add a few things.
Yes.
So Todd, thank you for your willingness to serve the community and the district. You have been a thoughtful and well-prepared, fair, and balanced board member. I've had that sense at every single meeting and every interaction that I've had with you. You have considerable expertise in many, many areas, especially related to fiscal policy, and so I think that you impressed your board colleagues when you very quickly grasped what a defeasance is right away. You needed no tutorials, so you saved room for the rest of us. But you not only understand big picture financial issues, but you also understand how individual dollars impact specific programs and initiatives. And I think that's really important when we are looking at financial decisions. You've also represented parents really well, which is particularly important for the board. There have been many times where we have asked, what does this feel like to be an elementary parent? And you've been very insightful. I think we all know that your service has been dominated and complicated given to COVID. We were right in the middle of all of that when we had a lot of meetings. We always have a lot, but we had even more, and you were there with every one of them. I'm also going to pay you, I think, one of the highest compliments that I can, which is to say that you've been a courageous board member, as evidenced in many ways, but especially by your willingness to change your mind. Too often leaders don't do that. I think that often leaders think that they need to just stay in one place. But you were courageous enough to think that you need to learn new ideas. So you've listened, you asked questions, and you were willing to adjust based upon concerns for the district, which you saw as stronger than your own personal opinions. It was to be very much commended. River Falls has a tradition of strong school boards that support the district. We also have a tradition of strong school boards that support each other on the board, not only professionally, but I think also personally and in our relationships, and you've done that particularly well. So thank you very much for all of you've done. We're truly going to miss you, but the good news is you know us, where you know where to find us when you get lonely. So, and we'll probably also have one more person watching our meetings online. Is that accurate?
I don't know if this is on. Thank you, Stacy. I appreciate the words. Thank you, Bob. Yeah, I'm sure I'll find the meetings from time to time. So they're not as exciting to watch as they used to be, I guess. But I'll stay up to date.
But you know that we have a number of really important issues facing the district, and we are going to need to rely on you to give us your insight. You are up. You understand the context of the issues. So don't be shy about reaching back to us.
Yeah.
I just would add that I appreciate that you always represented what I believe to be a large faction of our community values, and you were advocating for the best interest of our kids. Thank you.
So.
And our next certificate is Mark Chapin. Mark, if you want to come up here in the well. We all want to see you, Mark. So, Mark, the Board of Education extends its congratulations to you for being chosen the Herb Cole Principal Leadership Award. Being recognized for your excellence in school administration is to be celebrated. You are a true ambassador of Wildcat Pride. Congratulations.
I'm not sure if everybody understands just how competitive it is to be able to receive a Herb Cole Award. This is very impressive, Mark. Thank you for your service, for your vision, for your leadership. It's a wonderful reflection of you and the district, so congratulations.
Stacy, if I could add a couple
Yes.
words, just Mark, appreciation, and I've said these kinds of things to you directly, so they're not a surprise, but really appreciate your work in the middle school. The middle school years are critical years, and it's not like all the rest of them aren't, but that age group is a tough age group, and your leadership, not only in middle school, but within the district and the leadership, it's really been appreciated, it's noted, and you've made an impact here. This isn't an easy job, And you've got to keep juggle a lot of people's opinions and a lot of people's perspectives and all those kinds of things. You do a good job, and this award is well deserved, and it's a recognition of what you mean to this district. So thank you for doing what you're doing, and continue to do it. Thanks, Mark.
All right, we're going to move on with our Spotlight on Education, and today we are going to hear from the Renaissance Charter Academy. I think it's Mr. Silver and his crew today. All right.
All right. Well, this is exciting.
Did you get the gist of this?
All right. Well, should we do introductions first? Okay. So this is our guidance counselor at the Renaissance. This is Jerry Muller. And over here is Peggy Webb, our lead teachers. So tonight's presentation is just to give you an overview, kind of an update of what's going on at the Renaissance, highlight some things that we're excited about, and talk a little bit about some of our goals for the new building too. So a lot of stuff here. We'll move through fast. So, all right. Right, we start off just kind of revisiting our mission. Renaissance Academy models acceptance, compassion, and dignity. We nurture independence, responsibility, and individual strengths to foster personal growth and academic achievement. So that's a mission that we revised last year. Our population, actually, part of our population is right here, as you can see. Sierra is a Renaissance student serving on the school board. You look good in this picture, though. All right. So we serve students from a number of different backgrounds, students who have fallen behind in credits, maybe need a little personalized support in order to graduate with their peers, a little bit extra for one reason or another. We serve a number of, a large percentage of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch program. A large percentage of our students have high ACEs scores, meaning adverse childhood experiences. And I would say that all of our students in our program, no matter where they're coming from, benefit from smaller learning environments, smaller class sizes, and that's what makes the difference, I think, over everything else at the Renaissance. Our goals for this year, we continue to work on a positive school culture, creating a culture where students feel comfortable and connected to their peers. We found that leads to improved academic outcomes, and we've looked at data to verify that. We continue to promote dignity, respect, inclusivity, and a sense of community. Another thing that we're working on very hard at the Renaissance is career and college readiness. We're focused on preparing our students for the next step. What we're doing in that area is looking at student youth apprenticeship, internship, work-based experience, and Jerry's worked very hard on some of those connections with post-secondary. Attendance. So our students, over time, have struggled with attendance due to a variety of factors. So we are addressing that by looking at the root causes of absenteeism and providing some incentives to have students with us as much as possible. And we're also offering support for our students in terms of mental health and wellness support. So we work with many underserved and underrepresented students who struggle with mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. So we provide access to mental health resources such as counseling. And we have a social worker who's not here tonight who's done a great job providing families with resources. So we're there for students, not only for the academics, but also for the mental health support. I think at this point, Jerry, I'll turn it over to you.
Sounds good.
All right. Do you want to take this?
Oh, sure. Do I just click it when it?
Yeah, on the
Okay.
right side.
Perfect. Like Mr. Silver said, my name is Jerry Muller. I am new to the district this year. I'm a first-year school counselor, and I work at the Renaissance and at River Falls High School. And I've loved my time at the Renaissance so far, so I'm really excited to share about what we're doing. So ACP, for those of you who don't know, is academic and career planning. So some of the gains that we have gotten through this year is that we have a ton of increased participation in programs like ECCP and Start College Now. So that's partnering with CVTC and UWRF to get
get some of our Renaissance students into college classes so they can see what college life is all about, what a professor is like, what the coursework might be like. So we have students taking classes like goat herd management, plant and seed identification, and behavior modification. So those are just really great opportunities that our students don't necessarily get at our high school, but they can certainly go. And when we were on the UWRF campus, that was extra great for them to just walk over to their classes. And then we have a lot of juniors and seniors who are working in our work-based learning program, so they can get credit for working in the community. So you probably see them out and about when you are, getting your burgers, when you're going through the checkout lines. Those are students at River Falls and at the Ren who are working and getting credit for it. So that's a really great opportunity as well. Mr. Silver and myself have been working with all of the seniors to work on individual post-secondary plans, no matter what pathway they're going down. We're really proud to do that. We can offer that individualized support and check in with our seniors multiple times throughout the year so they know that they're supported and know that we have their backs. We've done a lot more tours of four-year tech colleges and certificate programs this year as well. Sierra actually went on our UWRF tour. I think it was pretty well attended for our student group, and I thought it was great. They got to meet with the student panel there. They got a tour of the campus. We got to eat in the cafeteria. I think that was a highlight. And then we had Jen Sell, who works at CVTC. She came in and she gave a big overview of what CVTC can offer for our students specifically and why a tech college might be a really good pathway after school for students at the Renaissance specifically. And then, like Mr. Silver said, one of our goals is increasing our mental health and wellness at the Renaissance as well. So we've prioritized a partnership with restorative services in the community. And now at our new place at the old police station, they are conveniently located a block down. So that's been really nice. We have a volunteer, Calvin, who comes in and does community circles twice a week. And those are really, really well attended. He was honored at, I think, a couple months ago, he was honored here. And then we have 5 students currently participating in individual therapy with licensed mental health practitioners at restorative services. So that's just another opportunity we can give students who need a little bit more in-depth mental health support that myself and Jackie Graham, the school social worker, cannot offer. We also have yoga offered weekly on site in the morning for students. We have art therapy, which is that picture there. And then just this week, we started our weekly self-esteem group that has 6 students participating. And we have enough students who are excited about it that we can run a second cohort of it. So we're excited about that as well. Is this you?
I'm Peggy Webb. I've been at the district for almost 6 years now. Before coming to River Falls, I did teach ag at a Plum City school district. So I brought a lot of my ag science background to bring in cooperative learning into the Renaissance Academy. We've worked really well with the UWRF with Tova Flygar, who has written a grant in regards to environmental and natural resources. And she and I teamed up together to implement some of the grant components as part of our curriculum. And the next few slides you'll see is what our science courses, our natural resources, and a couple other Broadfield science classes have been participating in. We are currently working with our local resources, and as you can see up in the photo, we've been working with UWRF and the Carpenter Nature Center, where students have been given the opportunity to go to the Nature Center, see the new facility, and then also see an outdoor lab where they're doing some tree identification and some timber management programs. We have ongoing themes that are woven into the curriculum by doing self-care, coping skills, cultivating positive relationships, prioritizing sleep, and practicing gratitude. Now you're wondering, how does that fit into our curriculum? When we take care of ourselves outside of school, then we can do better ourselves while we're in school. So it's important that we model for our students some of the things that they can do when they leave our building to kind of perpetuate the continuum of self-care outside of our buildings. We do dabble in character education, and we have taken bits and pieces from the curriculum. And in this particular photo, you'll see that Our students are working at the university where they are creating a legacy project. And the legacy project is down by Ag Science, which is down by the greenhouse. And you'll see a retention area where water can run off, but then the native plants that we've planted in there will help with the runoff from the parking lot and other paved areas. Character education also deals with honesty. We're working with some geocaching situations, and when students find the little geocaches, they are responsible to return items in their location. Sometimes they say, oh, we should take all of this, and they're like, oh, no, we should leave it for everybody else. So, it's nice for them to remember why we're doing these things. So the honesty component was very prevalent in this particular activity. Respect. We had a part of the grant with Tova that dealt with indigenous cultures, and she was able to bring in a group of Native Americans where we learned about their water ceremonies and other indigenous cultures and practice. And one of the other activities we participated in was how they gathered rice. So we went over to the university and we watched a video on how they cultivated the rice in their handmade canoes, and then talked about the environmental impacts other agencies have on their native lands. We talk about perseverance. At the Renaissance, we have a number of students who are going to be first-generation college students, and I took them over to a college fair at the university, and these two students that you see right here are going to be first-generation college students in their families, and we all know that education continues to break the poverty cycle. Okay, this is courage. This might be a stretch, but if you can see it, we've got a rat on the shoulder of one student and snakes in the others. So if you want a safe environment to kind of face your fears, we will bring in rats and ferrets and snakes. So if you bring it, they will come, and it's just a nice activity for students to kind of, get in. I'm petrified of rats. I can do snakes all day long, but not rats. So it's just great that these students have the ability to do that. We also foster citizenship, and if you look here, you can see that we have students working in the community garden last year, and then we also have the middle picture where we were working with the Kinney Project on the trout count that happened to come up that day. So students were there learning about how to do the count, the trout count, to make sure that we are all good stewards of the land. Positive attitude. It's attitude is your option is what I live by. So when we show each other support, we are able to encourage additional charisma to follow, and to just show that everybody is supported in our program, because it takes an entire village to assist some of our students that we have. And then we have respect. The students are working with finding, that's a little snapper turtle, if you can see it in the student's hand. They found that it's about the size of a quarter, and can we have it as a pet? Is that a good idea? No, put it back. So, we're learning to respect the wildlife and everything that it encounters, and it's just been a really great opportunity to work with the grant that Tova Flagar has written for our students, and then we have another one that's up and coming for next fall as well. Some of the things that we're going to continue to work on is some of the native prairie grasses that are here in the area, and then we're also working with her to do some things out at the school forest. Mr. Silver?
So we've focused on a model called the School of Hope, which works towards helping students develop a sense of agency for their own direction. So over the summer, we had a book read and some meetings this fall, and again, working towards helping students understand the relationship between hope and success. So I just thought I'd put that into the mix. We've had a number of success stories. We have a lot of fun at the Renaissance, in case you were wondering. But with that, we've had a lot of success. One that we're excited about is we're seeing significant gains in the number of students reading at grade level or above. I would say about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe looking at about 47% of the students reading at above grade level. And Gary's going to speak to that in a minute, but we're seeing gains in that area. So we know that what we're doing with reading is working. It's a process. We got a long ways to go, but we're excited about what we see so far in terms of the data. We've had some really great student presentations, volunteered, had nothing to do with the grade during African American History Month, during Women's History Month, that we thought were just amazing. And again, the students who put this together weren't doing it for any reward. They just wanted to be part of this process and present the information to celebrate these months. We have less behavioral incidents over the last few years, and I think part of that is the connection that students are feeling to our program and our building and people like Smaller and Ms. Webb. And we're seeing an increase in GPA overall in students that are transferring into the program. So what we like to measure is where are students when they come in and where are they a semester later in our program. And almost in all cases, we're seeing significant increase in GPA. So we're excited about that. You want to take this slide?
Sure.
All right.
Me again to talk about data. So like Mr. Silver said, in 2019, we had about 47 students who were reported as reading at grade level. And with our last FastBridge overview, we have 63% of students reading at or above grade level. And within that sect of 63% of those students, 31% were marked at a college pathway level. And it's worth noting that quite a few of those were underclassmen, so freshmen and sophomores. So we're really proud of that, and that's something that we want to keep growing, and that's a lot of teacher work, taking that on too and really prioritizing reading during free time, reading during the content delivery, and just making sure that's something that we're focusing on as a school culture and not just you like to read, okay, go read, and then forget about it after that. So moving on to the other side is the climate survey that we just administered last week for term 4, and that's looking at connection that our students have to the Renaissance. So that first, this is just a snippet of what that survey entailed. It was about 12 questions. These are 2 that we're really proud to show off. So that first one, I feel connected to at least one Renaissance staff member. We really like to see that grading go up on there. So 5 being, yes, I have lots of connection. I feel very, very connected here. And then that second piece of data that you see below that, the Renaissance provides support for me to be academically successful. Just like Mr. Silver was saying, we really pride ourselves on being a safe harbor spot for students to come and feel like they can shed whatever layers they need to and just be themselves with us, so that they're connected to us as staff members, they're connected to each other as students in our community, and then they're connected to the academics that, because we are a school, that we are providing for them. So that 4 and 5, those are that high end of the scale again, just like the graph on top, and we are really proud of those numbers that we saw as well.
All right, thank you. We're really excited to move into our new leased space on Sunshine Boulevard, Sunshine Avenue. Is that I think it really is called Sunshine Avenue. So it's going to be all rainbows, and but it gives us a chance to I think even leap further in terms of enhancing our academic rigor. We may take a different approach to education at the Renaissance than traditional high schools do, but we don't water it down. We recognize the importance of having a rigorous academic experience for all students, no matter where they come from. So specific goals that we have for our new space is offering some upper level science courses, including chemistry and physics, which haven't been offered at the Renaissance, mainly because of space and equipment. So we plan on incorporating that into our curriculum as soon as next year. And the other thing we want to help students do is explore their interests and talents further, so that we can increase the number of students that are participating in things like extracurricular activities and athletics and clubs. I feel that's really an important part of being a high school student. And we're anxious to bridge together with the high school on that. Given our proximity to the high school, students can literally just walk down the block and participate in art club, FPLA, other things that we, just because of our distance from the high school have been a little tricky. Many of our students don't have transportation. So this is really exciting for us, this proximity. So that's what we have for you. A lot of great things going on at the Renaissance. Are there any questions? We have one question. We did. So right now we have 50, give or take, and our capacity, we figure in the new building, is 100. Why do we have 50 right now and not 80 or 100? Because we don't have any space. We've had a lot of requests for the type of programming that we offer at the Renaissance. I get calls every week. I have a long list, waiting list, but we just simply, at the police station, if you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. It's just really cramped. So I think there's a finite number I should mention because we want to offer, you know, something different in terms of small class sizes and so forth. Right around 100 is what we figure is probably our finite number in this new space. But we're excited to grow, which we will. And I think that we'll be able to serve, you know, up to 100 students really well. Yeah.
Cri-
You mentioned about the academic performance.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a tie between class size and student-teacher ratio to student, that you find that students perform better with hands-on from the teacher approach versus big, huge classrooms with less support?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much a no-brainer in terms of just, you know, when we're dealing with class size of maybe 16 students, we have the opportunity to really know them and know their strengths and know their challenges. And for the population we work with, you know, there are many students that do really well in larger class sizes, of, you know, 28 and so forth. The population we work with really is the population that tends to have slipped through the cracks. So they need that, and that's the benefit of our setting and our approach.
So you're looking for more funding to go towards programs like what you do, right?
That'd be great.
So
Yeah.
if you got a little bigger space, how much space would you need to be able to take pressure off the school system to be able to give more of this attention so that the dollars are going to better use? Because if you're saying that kids are falling through the cracks, that means that the dollars are chasing the wrong problem.
Well,
Your solutions, that's a better solution for the dollars if you have the right size classroom.
So I think part of that goes back to the population we work with. So if you look at the percentage of kids that are successful at our high school, it's very high. So we're talking about those students who just simply didn't thrive. Maybe the family's in transition, maybe the student comes from a situation of no resources. There's a lot of different reasons why they end up in our program, but ultimately they're behind in credits. They're kind of lost in the big school. So what we provide is a connection for them. You know, could it be scaled? I guess so, but I think right now the model's working because the high school serves vast majority of students really well. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
I was curious because there's a finite amount of dollars. As we evolve, we're seeing more online schooling, we're seeing more kids leaving the public school going to private schools.
Right.
Obviously for what happened earlier tonight, for a demonstration, right? So I'm thinking that it'd be like a survey to see what you're actually doing in comparison with the regular school district doing, and see if some of those dollars can be diverted for the taxpayer purposes. It seems very impressive numbers.
Yeah, and the Renaissance Academy has been in existence since 1998. So this model's working again for that percentage. Nothing's new here, you know, this is something that's worked for a long time. Yeah, okay.
I think it's important to remember that the Renaissance is one of our schools. They're part of the River Falls School District. I mean, the Renaissance is governed just by the school board, just like all of the other schools in our district. So,
Yeah.
well,
I didn't mean to make it sound like a separate
he's a leader of his.
He's a long way from the school.
He's a leader of his. Yeah. No, he's the leader of his building.
Right.
Just like we expect all of our administrators to lead in their buildings. Alan?
You're very impressive. Good job.
Some comments here, because I think this is really good, and you've got a good staff, and I've been there and I've watched it, and for a long time. This is, so for those that don't know, in Wisconsin, we can charter schools within a district. So our district has 2 charter schools within it, which is unique. So we've chartered the Montessori school, and we've chartered the Renaissance Academy, which makes our district very different. It gives our families a lot of choices. The Renaissance Academy doesn't exist in any other high school in this way in western Wisconsin, west of Eau Claire, okay? So and it's not that we have these students and other districts don't, okay? It's that we've decided we're going to address these students who have unique needs And it's not like they're all one kind of student either. As you guys know, this is a very diverse district, and it's a very diverse group of students who are in this. But it worked. The genesis of this was Carol Motez many years ago, who came out of the middle school and had formerly been an elementary teacher, still active in his community. And it's really been a hallmark here. And the success stories for the students and success stories and epiphanies for board members on the success of these students has been long and storied. The one thing we should say, though, is this isn't a more efficient way to educate students. The cost per student in this and in Montessori is higher than it is for the rest of our students, but it's not higher if you consider the fact that we keep them, okay? And that we keep these students and we get them through a rigorous and relevant educational program and graduate them, because our philosophy is there are no disposable students. Okay, and that many of these students, as you say, come from very different backgrounds. So we're very proud of this, and it's why we put so much time into it. This is 50 students out of 3,500 students in the district, but they're an important 50 students because we don't want to lose them, and they're an important part of what we're at. So I really like this presentation tonight, and the fact that you've got a couple of your talented staff members here, and we've got one of the students who's our student member on the board here. This has just been something of pride for this board for a long time, so I appreciate the fact that you're here.
I really appreciate that, Alan. And again, there are staff members that couldn't attend tonight, and it's because of them, and their hard work that it's all happening the way it is. So I'm very thankful as well.
Just one more quick thing. I'm excited to see the building. This is the first I've heard of it. I don't remember, I don't know where the funding is coming from, but I don't remember having a referendum or anything about that. And I thought that with districts,
Yep. That's all been an open conversation. We had a public meeting about it. That's in August. Yeah. There's not just.
There isn't a referendum for that building. We're renting it.
We're renting.
We're renting it.
Leasing the building.
We're releasing the building. Yes.
The only. Yeah, I've heard that rumor too, and speaking of the word transparency, as the board members have alluded to, there's a legal requirement in the state of Wisconsin that anytime that school districts are going to purchase land, sell land, or in this case, lease a property, it requires a community vote. An electors meeting by law has to be posted twice, which it was. There was an electors meeting held, and school board members who were at that meeting stood up out of their school board chair and sat with the rest of the electors. It was an electors vote. It was not a school board vote. So we posted that twice. We broadcast that meeting live, and it was to establish a lease with an option to purchase. That isn't going to happen without another community referendum, electorate vote, or whatever. So there was an electorate vote that approved the lease agreement, and inside of that lease agreement is an option to purchase. Quite frankly, school district doesn't have the money to buy a building. We don't have it.
But there's a lot of public support for this, and we would think that maybe, because would be a very good deal for us if we could buy it. But we can't decide that as a board. Broader things are going to have to come into play here, and some priorities. But part of the reason I'm glad you asked that is because there's a ton of misinformation. Well, not a ton of information. I've noticed the number of comments floating around about, well, how did this happen? Well, how did this happen? Well, we're open. Our meetings are open. They're posted. Meetings like this are recorded. The electors meeting was open. Rather than to come and grab everybody and drag them in, there are some things that we've, point being, they're open and transparent, and we want feedback on it. This is a particular program that's just been incredibly good, and just, across the spectrum, there's been support in this community for it, and we hope that will continue. But the next step for this, as Jamie says, is there will have to be another vote if we purchase that building. And purchasing it could save the district a lot of money going forward. But it's moved around a lot. As those of you who have followed this, it's moved from the old building, the old junior high building, to PRs. It's moved to the university. It's now at the police station. We've got to find a home for this. Those our teachers do a really good job in this program, but it's got to have a home, and it serves a home, and we can do more with it, and our students deserve more for it. So, yeah.
All right, well, Renaissance crew, thank you very much for your work and for highlighting it for us today. We are going to move on to reports, and we have our student representative reports. So, Sierra.
When I think of River Falls, I think of words like kindness, community, and generosity. As a school district, I see many students reflect their community's values every day. At all the schools in the district, we do little things to give back to those in need. At the high school, they have this place called Wiley's Wardrobe, where students can get essential needs like clothes, food, hygiene products when they can't afford them. I had the opportunity to meet with senior leaders of Wiley's Wardrobe and just discuss why it's so important and how we can make something similar for the Rend. Wiley's Wardrobe was created by a senior named Olivia Redmond. She knew that there was needs for students that weren't being met, and she decided to do something about it. Her goal was to create a judgment-free zone, and she truly achieved it. Their mission is to provide a safe and welcoming environment, offering clothing, snacks, school supplies, personal care items to all high school students in need. We get donations from many donors, and we share them between the schools. We have all types of clothing for anything a student will endure. We have business casual clothing for interviews and scrubs for those who are working in the healthcare profession. This is essential when students are struggling financially and are too ashamed to ask for help. At the Renaissance, we are trying to create the Renaissance Rack, but due to us moving buildings, it's been a challenge to get started. We are working to get hair products for all different types of hair. Our goal is to meet the needs of all students. Donations are welcome. We are looking for adult clothing in all sizes. And we hope to see more students utilizing Wiley's Wardrobe and Renaissance Rack. And I can't wait to see how the program grows.
Thank you. You know, that's a great way of getting some ideas, is you see something that's going on someplace else and you imagine, well, how could that help us in our situation? So you've got some creative thinking to do over at the Ren about that. So good for you. All right, Superintendent's report.
I will be brief, but the good news for tonight is just to mention some progress with our school forest. We, for the first time, really ever, have a significant amount of student experiences planned for our school forest. In the past, there certainly has been some groups that have gone out there on a field trip and some environmental learning experiences, but we've made some pretty significant advancements, particularly to providing access to the school forest, which has been landlocked in the past, and we've partnered with the Kenny River Land Trust, and we now have a new access road. It's dirt now, and I guess maybe a little bit of mud today, but we're hoping that we're able to actually this access road to get to our forest is a half a mile long. And if you're going to take the littles out there, the little kindergarten, elementary kiddos, they're pooped out by the time they get to the forest. And so we think we've, with the help of a lot of volunteers, have cleared out trees and did a little bit of road work and so on. And we actually can get a bus down that road, assuming the weather would cooperate and not be too muddy. Vision for the future is we're going to get a gravel road in there, and that too would take some community support probably, and we'll get a facility back there and do all kinds of great things. But we're really, really excited that all of the work that these volunteers have put in to help us gain access is going to come to fruition here in the month of May. I think at last count there was either 10 or 12 different field trips already planned, and different age groups, different experiences, and so we're pretty excited about that, and I just want to give that kind of a progress update. We've provided periodic updates to some potential opportunity for kids to experience the great outdoors and be able to engage in some environmental learning, but it's really coming to fruition here now this next month. Very exciting. Many thanks to our volunteers for making all that happen.
Good. Thank you, Jamie. All right, we have administrative reports related to the district strategic plan. So every month, we have been getting an update about what's going on in our schools related to the plan. And so this time, we are looking at Goal 3.1, enhance mentoring and coaching support for new certified teaching staff. So we're going to go by the order on our agenda, and we will first hear from River Falls High School and the Renaissance Charter Academy.
I'm going to pinch hit for the high school, Chris. Sorry to step in on you, but I'm going to do it just because all three of our high school administrators had some conflicts tonight, one with illness and the other two with personal conflicts. So I'm going to just give a real quick update on mentoring activity at the high school. Once a month, the high school offers some collaborative opportunities for staff. They're really learning from each other. They're doing some things around the universal design of specific lessons and ways to engage students. They're incorporating different methods of increasing engagement and group discussions with the students. They're creating some very specific summative assessments that helps teachers to monitor, okay, so what have the students learned? What have they not learned? How do we need to adjust our instruction to increase the achievement for all of our kiddos? All of our new teachers have an assigned mentor. That's common throughout the district. And then also anywhere from September through May, there's either once or twice a month, there's also our 9th and 10th grade teachers. They have specific meetings targeted towards supporting some of the students that have some particular higher needs. And so they work with the counselors and do some specific targeting to help increase the academic achievement and engagement for some of those kids that to help avoid having them falling through the cracks. Teachers are placed on evaluation cycle that involves the administration observing instruction and having dialogue with staff. Again, that's common throughout the district as well. Administrative, kind of this open door policy to provide coaching and mentoring themselves and providing support to our teachers. There's a Staff Connect, kind of a newsletter where they're improving their communications with staff. It's very, very intentional. Meetings have been held with the paraprofessionals, the support staff folks, doing a better job of that this year, helping them learn new and different ways to help support students academically as well as behaviorally. And so that's just a real quick overview of some of the things at the high school level.
Thank you. Yes, Chris, do you have something to add for Ren?
Mirroring a lot of the same ideas. We're obviously a smaller staff. There's 5 teaching staff, but really I kind of put our primary focus in 3 areas. One is to help teachers identify and address individual student needs. We're all about personalized learning. We kind of live and breathe it at the Renaissance. So allowing and helping them understand what it means to tailor instruction to those needs is what we're big on. We meet every Friday to talk about that and how we can better do that, because it's a little easier for us to meet as a team because all of our teachers have students in common. So what works for one teacher oftentimes will work for another teacher if they're experiencing some challenges. So that would be one thing. We certainly want to facilitate the collaboration between teachers on staff, allowing them to just share ideas, because I've got a creative bunch at the Renaissance. And I spend a lot of time in classrooms. That's why I fall behind on paperwork most days, because I think it's really fascinating to me what's going on in individual classrooms. So they see me a lot, and I get to see what's going on. And our staff is pretty tight. So if there's something that's not working or something that is working, they're often willing to share that and brainstorm and problem solve together. And ultimately the winners are the students in the core academic areas, because they're fine tuning all the time. Let's see, I had a third idea. I can't see it there, but I think we've hit kind of the major themes in terms of our mentoring and coaching staff. We don't have a lot of new staff members. We have a lot of veterans. We have a new guidance counselor who's worked very closely with our teachers as well. So I think that speaks to sort of the family team feeling that we have is we don't have a lot of turnover, luckily for us. And I'd say the primary advantage of that is you really do learn how to deliver personalized instruction in a meaningful and authentic way. So that is where we're at.
Thank you very much. Meyer Middle School.
All right. This evening, I'd like to share two specific academic instructional supports that we provide our new staff. I think it's important, and maybe it's Captain Obvious, but we do have new staff that are veterans that are coming. We have new staff that are newbies, fresh out of college. So the amount of support that they need varies a little bit different. The one thing that we really haven't talked a lot about is the importance of educator effectiveness, and we use what's called the Charlotte-Danielson framework. And what you find out when you look through the Charlotte-Danielson framework, it has 4 domains and 22 components. And when you read through those, there's 4 different levels for each of those 22 components. So teaching is complex. There's the art of teaching, there's the science of teaching. So one thing that, and I don't think this is unique to Meyer Middle School, I know all of our teachers that are on a 3-year cycle have to do the self-review. And I'm a real stickler for the self-review. I expect a great deal of time. I'm glad that wasn't my phone. That's good. Spend a lot of time, I expect a lot of time to be put into that self-review. And then when we meet at the beginning of the year, we go through and we have conversations. We identify strengths and areas for growth. Conversations center around things like classroom management, routines, procedures, high expectations, making learning relevant to kids, developing highly engaging lessons, focusing on learning targets, making sure those are posted and checked for understanding, the power of formative assessment, response days. So that's, as principals, we serve as coaches as well. So we're coaching our new staff. So that part of the educator effectiveness process, to me, is one of the most important parts, is that self-review and the conversations that we have around those. So that's the first thing. The second one is our weekly collaboration meetings through our professional learning communities. And that's with our grade level departments. And really that begins with the belief that all students can learn at high levels. That's the work of DeFore. That's the book study that we did as an admin team. And that really begins with rigor, relevancy, and relationships. So pairing a veteran staff with a new staff, having discussions around scope and sequence, having discussions around pacing. Right now we're building proficiency scales. We're hyper-focusing on the learning. We talk about and build our common assessments during that time, and then analyze student learning. So those are just 2 ways that we support. We have grade level department colleagues, and then the roles of principals that we serve as coaches as well.
Thank you, Mark. All right, elementary folks.
We're going to have a quiz afterwards, so that's what you're getting. No, we won't have a quiz.
Bob thought it was cash.
There's a voucher on the back. Well, good evening, everybody. My name's Nate Sherman. I'm the principal at Greenwood Elementary School, and I'm also the school district safety coordinator. And I'll be representing the elementaries today, Rocky Branch, Westside, and the Montessori. So in thinking about 3.1, enhancing and mentoring, coaching, supporting our new teaching staff, there's really 4 different areas that we wanted to speak to you about tonight where we provide support. And the first one, like Mark said, was as principals, we try to be instructional leaders in our building. So that's one area I'll talk to you about tonight. We also have instructional coaches at the K-6 level, so we use them also for the goal of supporting our new staff. We have assigned mentors, and then also we use the colleagues, each other's colleagues, on a regular basis too. And the objective of all of this is to put our students in the best position to learn, to make sure that they're getting the learning opportunities they deserve through the support that we provide them. So as principals, Mark talked about the educator effectiveness model, and I think part that he didn't talk about is our responsibility as principals to be in new teachers' classrooms on a regular basis to give feedback, also to evaluate, but we try and be there on a regular basis informally first to make sure that there's a sense of comfort and trust among the new teachers. We want them to see us as colleagues and people that are helping them grow, not catching them. If that has to happen, it will, but that's not our objective. So we try and spend a lot of time in the new teachers' classrooms, talking with kids, watching them teach, offering informal suggestions to them. But then also there's a formal side of it that goes through our evaluative process where we are giving very specific and precise feedback to the work that they're doing, maybe the teaching techniques they're using, how they're questioning students, how they're assessing students, maybe even how they're using time, their time, and the resources that they're using too. So those are some ways that principals are supporting staff in their development. Our coaches play a pretty big role for all of us too. This year we've had 3 literacy coaches and 1 math coach in the district, and next year we'll have instructional coaches. So we'll be coaching in a different capacity come next year, but we're excited about the opportunities that that provides. All of our teachers that are new to our district have a cycle with coaches. So like Mark had mentioned, some of our new staff aren't brand new, but yet it's important for all of us to make sure that we're coaching and supporting them as well. Teachers are in education for the right reasons. They do the best that they can based on what they know. And we need to make sure that collectively we have the right amount of shared knowledge so that they're doing the right things based on the research that we have accessible to us. So our coaches are involved with our new staff. They do a lot of modeling for our teachers, so they might share part of a lesson where they're getting in front and saying this might be how you would approach it. There's also some co-teaching, some back and forth, some shared components that go on. It's not an evaluative process with our coaches, but it is one in which we're supporting our new teachers as they're working towards their goals. Our coaches are also helping our new teachers understand data analysis, which is really, really important. So in addition to helping our new teachers figure out what to teach, which is an important topic that we're going to get to in a little bit, and also how to teach, we need to make sure that our new teachers know how to assess whether or not our students are learning the things that we want them to learn. So analyzing data and looking at it and saying, okay, what is this telling us? What kind of adjustments do we need to make right now? And can we make in the future as we teach down the line? Mentors are meeting with our teachers on a regular basis, and we actually have, I guess I refer to it as a mentor curriculum to follow, where our mentors are meeting on a scheduled basis, going over specific information to help our teachers transition into a new school. Whether you're brand new or just new to a school, there's a lot to learn that goes beyond the classroom. Just how to function in the school, where to get this, where to get that, how to run the copiers, how to use the phones. Do you dial 8, 9, 1? What do you dial to get out of this thing? So there's all kinds of things that our mentors are helping with, but also just being a support system for them in anything that they need. And then lastly, I mentioned using their colleagues, and Mark talked about collaboration, and so did Jamie in referencing the high school. And what I handed out to the board members and the people up front was a standard that comes out of the Wisconsin State Standards. And this goes back to the comment that I made about trying to identify what it is that we should teach. So for those of you that are educators, you know that the amount of standards that we have in the state of Wisconsin far exceed what we could teach during their years in school. In fact, I think some research says we'd have to teach them all the way until they're 23 to cover, not teach. That means something different, but to cover all of those standards. And I'm pretty sure they don't want to stay till they're 23, and we probably don't want them to stay that long either. So one of the things we have to do is prioritize our standards, and here's one of them. This is a 3rd grade reading standard, and it says, describe a character, traits, motivations, and or feelings, drawing on specific details from the text. Describe the relationship among a series of events, ideas, concepts, or steps in a text, using language that pertains to time, sequence, and cause and effect. Simple, right? Teach that. So obviously it's not very simple. It's pretty complex. It's multifaceted. So our teachers need to work together to identify what elements that are within that standard are going to be taught, if that's a priority, and if so, how are we going to get at those things? So we have to work together to break down that information. And then we have to create what we call common formative assessments. So there's different ways to assess students. One might be at the end of a unit, a final exam. We call that a summative. But at that point, the learning process is generally over. A formative assessment is an assessment of learning during the learning process so that we can intervene during the teaching process and catch kids before there are any gaps. I also wanted to talk about our student support team that meets regularly with principal, school psychologist, school counselor, title teachers, special education staff, where we're analyzing benchmark assessment data that's being progress monitored on our students, trying to see if we have need to change our instructional approach. And then lastly, another thing I want to mention that Rocky Branch has done a nice job with this year is peer observation. We have a lot of experts in our midst in our schools, and Rocky Branch has done a good job getting their teachers out and into each other's classroom to learn and observe. So those were the things that I wanted to share from the elementary.
Thank you. I want to make a comment that I think applies to all of you, and that's when our teachers are supported, our kids thrive.
Nate, I have a question for you, and maybe Mark too. What's the feedback that you're getting from teachers, from new teachers specifically on the impact of the work? And I'm curious if you've observed any difference or growth in our new teachers as this plan has been implemented in a really intentional way.
Well, this year at Greenwood, we did not have any new teachers, but we did the last couple of years, and to be very honest, I'm not sure that our approach was any different before this element of the strategic plan became a priority for us or not. Certainly it brings some emphasis and reminds us to stay on top of that, but we all recognize that our most important assets are the people that we have in front of our students, so we invest a lot in them.
I just mentioned the complexity of teaching, those 22 components, especially for somebody coming out right out of college. Like you're just staying afloat that first year. Second and third. So I think just supporting them in that, and we're fortunate at the middle school that they meet every day with their team, so they have that internal support, which is really nice. In terms of growth professionally, we meet at the beginning of the year, mid-year, and at the end of the year. So each of our teachers, whether you're a new teacher or not, sets a PPG's professional practices goal. We work to support our teachers on that. So bare minimum, hopefully they're making progress. My whole thing was let's get better at one thing this year. Let's get better at another thing next year, and then continue to get better. Have that growth mindset.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. All right, we are going to move on to letter D, and I'm going to call on Alan as the clerk.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, I'll say a few words about this. I can say a few words more tonight because there's not an Ed Programs Committee report. So anyway, the election results. So let me just recap a little bit on the process of this. I think as board members, we've all been through it at various stages, but just generally, so it's out there, we all understand. The process of running for the board is, by Wisconsin state law, is a little more complex than most people think. There's a window where you've got to file. You've got to decide whether you're going to spend more than $2,000. Now it's $2,500 on your campaign. And for those that don't know, most candidates are involved to some degree in a campaign. If they spend more than $2,500, there's another whole process they have to do with reports. There are certain things you have to do with your brochures, for example, and all the material you put out there, you have to say who it's paid for and all those kinds of things. So it gets a little complex. But for everybody who wants to run, their first stop is with Amanda Taylor in the superintendent's office, and Amanda meets with them, shows them the paperwork. They're all invited to do a one-on-one with Superintendent Benson if they have questions and to talk through the process, and also invited to talk to any of us current board members who do that. And in Wisconsin, our elections for school board members, city council, and some nonpartisan statewide races are all done in April, and it's really unique. There are very few states in the nation that do this. I almost put the words nonpartisan in parentheses because, as we all know, these spring races have become more partisan, and we just saw a Supreme Court race that kind of was all over the place, and it's not the first time, and there probably won't be the last time that gets involved with us. But in the meantime, we've got local citizens who are running for office. So they filed that paperwork, they can campaign, then the election's held, given all the regulations and rules, that Wisconsin has for them. And then, once the votes come in, there's a preliminary report that Amanda gets and posts typically to the rest of us. She will get via the phone the results from all the precincts around in the area. And keep in mind, this is complicated by the fact that River Falls District is in 2 counties. So we're getting St. Croix County reports and Pierce County reports, and it's some townships or precincts and not others. And so it gets a little complicated. So the second step after those come in is here as a local district, there's a board of canvassers that I have to convene. So there's at least 3 of us who get together, and Amanda's there, and we count the tapes literally that all of the precincts have put together and see if they agree with the original ones. And we put together our report, sign it, and send it back to the county. So this time when we did it, the numbers we came up with were exactly the same for the top 3 vote getters. Okay, for Patrick Richter, who was a registered write-in candidate, and it's difficult to be a write-in candidate in Wisconsin, and it's a challenge. But when we did our canvass, he got about 100 more votes than what he'd had before. It's not that they weren't reported, but for anybody who's seen the list, there's registered write-in, and then there's other write-ins. And about 100 of the votes that had initially been reported as other write-ins went to him. Didn't make any difference on the eventual outcome, and each of the county clerks had that. Then we waited long enough. We didn't do it till last Monday to make sure that everything was in. We did it, sent it in, and it's all done now. So there were a total of almost 1,200 votes, 11,738 votes. Allison Page got 3,880. And Stacy Johnson Myers got 3,704, so they were the 2 largest vote getters. Behind them was Cassie Erickson with 3,291. Patrick Richter got 830 votes, and then there were 33 other votes. The question I heard from a number of people was, wow, that seemed like a lot of votes. So I asked Amanda if she could run off for me, and I shared them with her. I had her send them out to the rest of you board members today. These official result tallies that get posted out here. And actually, we've had other years where there have been 12,000 or more votes cast in it. So there was a lot of interest, and that's good. I really have to hand it to people who are willing to put themselves out there and go through what it takes to get elected to the school board and stay on the school board and deal with what we have to do in the school board. It's not just anybody who will do that. I did have some questions about finances and how much you can spend on your campaign. And I mentioned earlier, if you're going to spend more than this year, it's $2,500. You have to file reports. One candidate did file that report. Did elect to do that this year. Followed all the procedures, went to Amanda, got the reports, and has so far submitted those. Anybody who has questions about that, that becomes open record, so anybody can access that. It's perfectly legal. If there are outside groups, and this is happening more and more across the state with local races who come in, that's independent of what local candidates do, and out-of-state or out-of-district PACs can come in, and as long as it's within Wisconsin state electoral law or federal law, they can do that. So there's another whole part of that. But this year, for some reason, we got inundated in these nonpartisan spring elections with stuff. And I just thought I would take a minute and sort of explain what happens in that. As long as you can spend as much as you want. Most people don't spend a whole bunch, but there is money and effort and all that involved in being on the school board, to say nothing of the time and effort that it takes. So I appreciate and respect all those people who have put themselves out there and done that. Any questions about the results of the process, Bob?
I think you want to mention that your role is the board clerk, and you're automatically a member of the canvassers, but also Amy Halverson and Barb Colpine were the other 2 canvassers. So
yeah, I should say,
total.
I just didn't take it upon myself to canvass these. As board clerk, I'm board clerk. It's my responsibility to make sure it, and Amanda has been designated as deputy clerk, so she helps collect all the stuff and really puts this together and helps type up the reports, and we sign them after we've gone through, and we make sure that our counts, we sat in here for quite a while, making sure that all of our counts matched. There's a lot of tapes that we've got to put together and find those things, so thank you, Bob.
Thank you, and Allison is here with us tonight, so welcome.
Oh, yes, I should say Allison is here, and of course Stacy is here.
All right, we are going to move into the action items, and what I'm going to do is we're going to take letter E right now. We will then follow up on the rest of the agenda later. So how we're going to do this on letter E is I'm going to give a little bit of background. I'm going to take a motion in a second, and then I have a few comments to make, and I know that the superintendent has some comments to make as well about this. So this is the background and the context. That our school board is committed to policy governance, and I want to make sure that everybody understands what that is. So what that means is the school board sets the policy for the school district. And we do that by taking into account a variety of factors, including state statute, community values, the needs of the district, and best practices. Those are the things, the majority of the things that go into how we create policy. So once the board has established policy, then it is up to administrators to implement it. But then school board members come back into this because we are the ones that monitor that implementation. And so in regard to the complaint that we had about the book Poet X, the parent properly followed school board policy 871. Our administration then conducted a review process, made a determination, and then, again, in accordance with policy 871, the parent/community member asked for that to be taken back to the school board for our review. And so that's where it is for us tonight. The only available option for the school board, and this is really important for everybody to understand, is to either uphold or question the process that administration went through in implementing policy 871. So it is not our place to make curriculum decisions. That's administration's responsibility. Our job is to determine if the process was properly held. So with that bit of background, I'm going to ask for a motion that we uphold the decision that the review committee made, thereby affirming the committee's decision. Is there a motion, please?
Stacy, there's no light. I'll make a motion to uphold the decision of the review committee.
Thank you, Todd. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Bob. All right, if there are any comments, my comment is to say that when we're looking at policy governance, trust and transparency is really important at all levels. The community needs to trust that the board is carefully considering community values and expectations for education. That's really critically important. The community also needs to trust that the board has complied with the law and with best practices. The board needs to trust that administrators and teachers will carefully implement policies, all of our policies. So I think that at this point, it is appropriate for us to be able to recognize that we need to be thinking about how we are not only implementing this policy, but also policy 381 related to controversial issues and materials. A key component in that policy is that parents will be communicated with well ahead of time so that parents can make informed decisions about a course of study or curriculum resources and how it fits their students. So it is this board's expectation the policy 381 is carefully implemented. It also seems we also need to be able to make sure that we are trusting administration to have a rigorous process for selecting curriculum resources. So I am, at the end of this agenda, going to be requesting a review of policy 871, the policy and the rule, just to make sure that we feel as if the policy is strong enough to be able to manage public concerns about instructional and library media center materials. So that's my comment. I know, Mr. Benson, you have something to make, and then we'll take anything else, and then we'll have a vote.
Yep, so I'm going to reiterate a piece of what Stacy said, and that is that the role of the board regarding policy governance on this particular decision before the board, their job is to determine whether or not the policy that the board created was followed. And that policy where Stacy's mentioned that administration needed to review the parent request for the book to be removed, the policy says there will be a committee of people that are put together and go through a process that helps reach a decision for that committee. So the board's decision tonight has to do with whether or not their policy was followed and whether or not there was some fidelity and a comprehensive approach taken by the review committee. And the first speaker tonight indicated that she bared witness to that process and spoke highly of the process that was used. Although not necessarily agreeing with the outcome, there was some process there that was done thoroughly. So what I want to add to this is that regardless of what the board determines in this vote that's on the table, is that the administration is going to follow this vote, regardless of what the vote is, by having a full review of the books that are currently used in our classrooms. We are going to engage our staff. We want to build and promote a great deal of transparency. I think the trust factor is at play here, and we need to be very mindful in how we address that issue. So for deep clarity, let me try to re-say it another way. The board is only voting on whether or not their policy was followed. That's their vote here tonight. After that vote, regardless of the outcome, what I'm indicating as the superintendent, I'm telling you that we're going to re-engage in the process of determining what books we will or will not have in front of our kids in our classrooms. And we're going to forge that decision around one of our more recently board-adopted strategic plan values, which includes integrity. And that we believe strongly in that word. And frankly, when I hear comments from the community about a lack of transparency or a lack of trust, to me that speaks to integrity. And we can't have that. We can't have our community wondering about our integrity. And we will continue to, again, after this vote on the process of the review committee, we will administratively engage in determining what books are and are not going to be used as, I'll use the word, as a kind of a supplemental resource in our classrooms, and make sure that they're reflective of our community values.
Any other questions or comments before we have a vote?
The material we've been given. Yeah. Never mind.
Do you want to say
Well,
something?
I mean,
or-
the board
Sue?
was given an extensive packet to review well in advance of this meeting, so we have all the documentation as far as timeline, who was in the meetings, the committee, the process, everything like that. It's not
The rubric, the responses.
rubric, the whole thing, yeah. So.
Thank you. That's important for everybody to understand. We've reviewed it.
So I was planning to just make a general comment about transparency and our commitment as a district to transparency with parents and community members, but Mr. Benson, I think, articulated that very well. So I'm not going to belabor that point, but I think I want to actually turn to those of you who showed up today to share your concern and to express your care for what's being put in front of our students. Thank you. Mr. Benson is sincere when he says he cares about the values of this community, and so for you to take the time to care enough to show up
and to express concern. You're an important part of this process. And so we're not always going to agree about the books that we put in front of our students, but at the very minimum, we need to ensure transparency is there so that we have a mutual trust with one another. So thank you for engaging in this process and showing up. And thank you to Mr. Benson for your leadership in taking steps moving forward to ensure that that transparency is there and that our community values are a part of these decisions.
And I think that one way that we are going to be able to make sure that that happens, when we look at this comprehensive review of Policy 871, we can make sure that when we are communicating with parents, it's not only what the content of the book is, but whatever book it is why we think it's important, why we think that it would be appropriate for our students to read, that that's the kind of information that we want to make sure that we are providing to our families ahead of time. So, anything else? Ellen?
Because I'm on a roll, first off tonight.
And it's not ed program, right?
It's not ed program, right? I want to agree with Lindsay and Bob's comments too on this. Well said. Again, I want to reiterate, part of the reason we have policy is so that we don't get one-off decisions. Policy means that an individual parent, an individual community member, an individual board member doesn't get to decide what does or doesn't get put in a curriculum, or a small group of people. We've got a process in place that helps us do that. Does it work perfectly all the time? Probably not. But it's really hard to avoid controversial stuff. I can tell you that there's several books that I would love for us to be teaching in several of our different disciplines, and a number of you tonight would consider them controversial. And there's some stuff that's currently in our curriculum that I agree is somewhat controversial, but that doesn't necessarily mean we get to drop stuff in and out, and I don't get to say what gets in and what doesn't get in. We've got to collectively decide that because we're a public school district. We have thousands of people who live in this district. We have thousands of students here and lots of parents, and there needs to be a process to do this. So this is it. Is it without flaws? We're always working on it. Appreciate the fact, like Lindsay said, that you're all here tonight, because very few people show up and listen to us. We got a couple people who are interested enough. I'm looking at Jim and Pam and some others that regularly sit in and listen to us and are patient with us. But appreciate your interest, but understand that there's some complexities to this. Is our policy clear enough? I don't know. Should parents be able to opt out, and should it be clear to parents? Yes, I think parent choice is very, very important. I think how we do this, we've got great teachers in this district. And the one thing I would say is, and I've heard this a couple of times, our test scores are not plummeting. That's flat out false, okay? If you look at our report card, and we did a very extensive presentation on this back in our December.
We're bringing it back in May.
Bring it back so everybody can see it again. There was an article in the paper about it. Compare us to neighboring districts. There's been some cherry picking on data, and there's a ton of data in that. That's one of the dangers of presenting all that, that I think has not adequately represented that. You look at how we compare statewide and nationally, our district is doing well. Can we do better? You bet we can do better. That's our goal. We're always striving to do better. But there's a myth out there that somehow test scores went off a cliff. They might have in some districts, and they're down in some areas, we know. The pandemic and all of that has done this nationwide, but that's not the case. So I do want to make that case. Glad we're going to continue to look at this and talk about it. I would say, too, there is a process for all of this, and we're administratively, or even, I'm going to put him on the spot and point to Nate Sherman. He's our new curriculum director coming in next year, and he'll lead this process. So there he is. You saw him up here. He doesn't get to decide this either. There are processes for it, but he will be actively involved in this as well as the board. So.
All right. Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. All right. And I think in that comment, you also have a teaser about next month. Come and learn about test scores. All right, so we're going to move on then to letter A. And before the board this evening, we have meeting minutes from the March 20th regular Board of Education meeting. We have bills that have been submitted for payment. We also have employment recommendations. So at this point, do we have a motion to approve minutes, bills, and employment as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mike. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Todd, I will turn to you one last time for Finance and Facility Committee update.
Yep. So we met last Monday, April 10th. We had a number of things. As Lynette is transitioning in, she is sharing just a little bit about the way she handles things and some reports that she'll be presenting to the group. If I do decide to attend meetings, I'll probably pick Finance and Facilities to come to, so.
Well, then you get the spreadsheets.
Yeah, yep, lots of spreadsheets. So we started with a comprehensive review of the roof replacement plan, which I don't have the map in front of me, but Joe Haselman presented, and it basically shows that we are, 90% of the way through all of the student-centered buildings in the district. With roofs that would have 30-plus year life expectancy. They would be warranted, and they have ways to extend those beyond that length of time, too. So I want to say all new within the last 10 years, less than that maybe. Yep, and so we are just finishing the last sections there. So hopefully we won't have to be putting money into roofs for a very long time after that, so.
Todd, could I just add, because roofs are my favorite topic, right? I just want to pinpoint how important that is, because we measure our roofs in this district in acres, as Jamie always says, not in square feet, and it's millions of dollars of expense, and the fact that we've been able to gravitate now to 30-year roofs means that's going to, for the next few years at least, free up money that's going to help us, because we're facing some real serious financial straits coming up the next few years. And anyway, it's great that they're doing this, and I just think it's important for us to all realize that this will free some money up and relieve some of that pressure. So.
I give Joe a lot of credit. My time on the board, he has very diligently worked on finding the right material, the right contractors, and so give Joe a lot of credit. The next item we had was a 2022-2023 budget update through February of 2023, just showing where we're at compared to the budget. And Lynette talked about some of the variances that existed, different timing for when we receive payments from tax money and different things with the state. The next item we had was to review and discuss the district's investments and our policy there. Again, Lynette's getting her eyes on that for the first time. I don't know if there's anything specific that came out of that that you wanted to highlight. It was more just kind of a general discussion and talking about what's included in there.
I think it was just, yep.
You're good.
I think it was just the recommendation to bring a policy, an investment policy.
Sure.
So
Yeah, it was the one we had was a little vague, right?
Yeah.
And
it was more financial management as opposed to specifically about investing school funds.
Sure.
Seeing a draft of that soon.
Yep. Next item was to discuss where we are in terms of fund balance, and then also a policy related to fund balance. There was some discussion mainly there about restricted funds that are put into fund balance, and are those calculated in? There was some terminology, I think, at the state level that would require us, if we want to count that as fund balance, that we would need to move it out of unrestricted, and also making sure that the unrestricted or the restricted pieces of it match up with projects that we have on the horizon. I think some of it was earmarked for roofs, which had been taken care of fairly recently then too. So, next item was budget model projections. Lynette has a very complex model through, is it Baird? Baird, that she's familiar with and that the district will be using moving forward, and presented a number of different projections on what that looks like over a 5-year horizon, mainly focusing on what that looks like for us moving into next fiscal year and then the year after that, because there's a lot of assumptions built in, and we are hoping to have clarity middle of this year to early fall on what the state is going to be doing. Is that a fair timeline?
Usually end of June is what we're crossing our fingers for.
So we're waiting to hear. We have to set our expenditures and things like that, well before we know what the 2-year budget cycle looks like from the state. So it puts us in a tough spot, and now we get kind of the final piece of that moving forward here in the next couple months, and then some of those projections become known items, and we can move on from there. So we're hoping for some good news. There's some optimism that special ed funding might be increased at the state level. I don't know all the way up to the governor's projection, but if right now we transfer $3.9 million out of our general fund to fund the special ed program that we provide. So if the percentage was increased to cover more of the expenses we have there, that would mean money left in the general fund for other items. So. I miss anything on the budget?
I don't.
Yeah.
Thank you. You did well. All right, I will give a report on the Personnel Committee. The Personnel Committee met on April 10th, and one of the things that we did is we recommend the board send letters of intent to certified staff. That's an annual responsibility that we have to meet state statute. We also received a brief update from the Insurance Study Committee. There was a staffing update. This is the time of year when we have retirements and we have resignations, and we are quickly and eagerly trying to fill all of our positions, so we received an update that way. We approved the volunteer coordinator and virtual learning secretary job description because since we have indefinitely placed our e-school on hiatus for kindergarten through grade 8, we really didn't need to have the same level of hands-on leadership from the secretary job description for virtual learning, so we did some shifting on that, and we made a change to that job description. We also went into executive session to discuss the final notice of non-renewal for certified staff and to discuss contract negotiations with our 2 employee groups, our union employee groups, teachers and bus drivers. So at this point, I would move that the board send letters of intent to certified staff. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Cindy. Any questions or comments? We've talked about this for a while. We do this annually. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried.
Can I ask a question? real
Yes,
quick before you
please.
move on to the next thing?
Mhm.
Do you all understand the committee structure of how the board works? So everybody knows what we're talking about when we.
Might be good to explain.
Yeah. Do you,
What?
can you, no,
You want-
you can, 'cause
You brought it up.
reelected.
Yeah.
You're reelected.
So we have 3,
Maybe you're asking, in part, the board has talked about there may be a public appearance at times that some decisions, when they get to the school board level, appear to go rather rapidly and they didn't get a lot of vetting and conversation. Is that why maybe you're asking the question, is
Yeah.
just to kind of point out that a lot of that work, dialogue, debate, discussion, vetting takes place in committee work. And we have 3 main committees of the board: personnel, finance, and ed program.
and so then when each chairperson gives a report, they're giving a summary of what the conversation was. And so when I said we received a staffing update, then we talk about the fact that we have people who resign and people who leave our district. And so then we're getting an update about where we are on that. When we change a job description, we're doing it in response to a need. Sometimes we do them simply because we are wanting to systematically go through our job descriptions and make sure that they match what's actually happening. So we have those conversations at the committee meeting, and then we bring those recommendations to the full board. So yes, we spend plenty of time in board meetings or in individual committee meetings going through all of these things.
And those committee meetings are open
Always,
as well?
they're open.
So for those of you who love to listen to us, we spend a lot of time, just about almost every Monday night, at least 3 Monday nights a month, sometimes 4. It'll be 4 this month. And some of those meetings can go long. As I've alluded to, ed programs tends to be a little longer than the others, but.
May I ask a
Sure.
Are there citizen members on that board, on those boards?
No, but, I mean, we are elected officials, and so the committees are made up of the people on the school board, so.
However, every committee meeting has an open format in the beginning for public comment, so.
And often, if there's many times we have teachers or whoever it is that's working on a specific issue that comes and they're invited to the table and we have conversations, all of us together. But the committees are not able to act on anything independent of the school board acting. And so every time a committee votes on something, what they're doing is they're recommending that the board take this action. So that's how it all works together. Any questions? Cindy will answer.
Thank you. I think
It's very good.
Absolutely.
It's very good. And when we
even to
have
me, it
people-
feels like we zoom through, but we've already talked about
Well,
everything, often twice, 3 times.
And when it gets to be 11 minutes to 2 hours, then I kind of think we should.
Yeah.
I do think it's important to note, though, too, the committees are made up of three board members, but oftentimes the full board will attend those committee meetings just so that we're all able to engage in the conversation and ask questions and collaborate, even though we're not voting members on the individual committees.
And that's a really good point, Lindsay, to bring up and make sure people are aware of, because I think that's a particularly important thing that our board does that keeps us strong, is that we are all participating in those conversations.
Which was also why I have a lot of respect for people who are willing to serve on this board, because it's a lot to learn and there's a lot of time committed to it.
Just to get prepared for letter E today. That was many pages to read. All right, so now we are still at the second recommended action from the Personnel Committee, and that's to approve the Volunteer Coordinator Virtual Learning Secretary job description. Is there a motion, please?
Did we, point of order, did we vote on the?
Yep,
We did?
7-0.
Okay.
Yep, we did. Thank you, Cindy. Is there a second?
I said yes.
I'll second.
Thank you, Todd. Any questions or comments? Thanks, Dave, for working on that. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. All right, one of the things that the board needs to do is at any point when we adopt new policies, there have to be 2 readings. And so after the first reading, it's still not an adopted policy until it comes before the board for a second time. And so this evening, we have 3 motions that I'm going to take together. One is the actual policy, and then the other 2 are rules, which means how that policy is implemented, or additional information, procedures for how to implement the policy. And this has to do with administering medications to students, but very specifically the medication Naloxone, which would be used in the situation of a drug overdose, which we hope we don't have, but if we do, we definitely want to be able to be prepared. So at this point, do we have a motion to approve the second reading of revised school board policy 453.4, as well as rule number 1 and rule number 2, which regards the administering of medication to students, procedures for administrating medications, and then the specifics on naloxone administration. It's a flow chart. Is there a motion, please?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Cindy. Questions or comments? I think it's important for people to know that people who will be doing this will be trained. It's also true that if you should misread the situation and somebody is provided naloxone accidentally, it is not harmful
They're
or
not
a
adverse
terrible
effects.
kind of thing. Right. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. All right, we are at F, and we already have 1 future items, and that
Stacy,
future.
can I just say one more thing?
Yep.
We approved that as a policy because we can't just decide, we got a new drug, we're going to start giving it to students, okay? There has to be a policy for this to do it, and we're following our policies, so anyway.
Right. All right, so we have 1 agenda item that will come before the board at a time that the administration thinks that we're ready to do it, and that is a complete review of policy and rule 871. Is there anything else?
I just had a question. Is that going to come through ed programs, or are we going to
do
that as a full board?
I think we'll come
right
to the
full board.
full. Can we just talk about
What's
that?
the question?
I just wondered if there was a plan, if the 871 was going to come through a committee first, or if it was just going to be addressed at the board level. And you don't have to
Probably.
answer, I just didn't know if there was a plan or not. We can wait to
I
make that
think given
determination.
the magnitude of what's at play, we'll probably just have that be a direct board conversation.
Okay.
Or we might get started ed program to get.
Could
well,
vet it through ed program. We'll have to think that through a little bit, but ultimately it'll receive a ample discussion and review.
Everything will land here twice before it's done, but then we'll decide if it goes first ed program or not. Anything else?
Test scores, I think.
Yep,
Jamie had
that will
mentioned.
be a. Anything else?
Maybe a board resolution regarding a resolution stating the board's advocacy for the legislature to improve school funding in this biennial budget.
Especially since we rank 418 out of 421 districts in the state of Wisconsin in terms of our per pupil
Revenue.
allotment. That would be important. Thank you both to Jamie and Lynette for spending time in Eau Claire testifying at the budget hearing. That's important. Anything else? All right, then we're going to schedule upcoming meetings. The board reorganizational meeting will be Monday, April 24th at 6 o'clock. Education Program Committee will meet Monday, May 1st at 6. Finance and Facilities will be Monday, May 8th at 6. Personnel will be Monday, May 8th at 7 or immediately following Finance and Facilities. The next regular board meeting will be Monday, May 15th here in the district office. At this point, I would like to make a request for executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985-1C for the purpose of issuing final notice of non-renewal to certified staff and to discuss negotiations with employee groups. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ellen. A second. Thank you, Bob. I need a roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Lindsay? Bob?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
I'm saying yes. Cindy, we are in. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Sorry. It was just a sober, but